The part was won by a British actor no one knew on December 10, 1938. It made her famous. They didn't tell you this though, she already had a scary secret to hide. She would change into someone else on movie sets. She forgot her name. She hurt people she cared about. In 1953, they had to fly her home while she was tied down. It wasn't scandal or getting old that killed Hollywood's most beautiful star. It was something very bad. She was born in Hardoi, India, on November 5, 1913, at a house called Shannon Lodge. There were such clear views from the porch that night that you could see Everest and Kanchenjunga. It was high up in the foothills of the Himalayas. Ernest Hartley, her father, was a rich businessman who lived in the mountains near Calcutta like a king or queen. Vivian Lee's early years were marked by a life that was peaceful, well-off, and full of natural beauty. Even though she didn't remember much of it, everyone always said she was born like a princess. She thought about that idea a lot. She felt like she was meant to be with that person for more. In 1919, though, everything changed. Her parents dropped her off at an English Catholic school when she was 6 years old. That cold and strict convent of the Sacred Heart in Roehampton was where I lived. She was the youngest girl there by 2 years. She didn't know many people. She was scared by herself and missed the warmth of India. A stray cat that the nuns let her keep was the only thing that made her feel better. That cat seemed like the only thing that could make her feel better. It hurt a lot to be left behind. It left scars that didn't really get better. It made her strong and weak at the same time. People could feel the same pain under her beauty when she appeared on stage or in movies later on. She went to a play in London with her mother when she was 8 years old. She was changed by that play, most likely Peter Pan. In 6 months she watched it 16 times. She always sat there with her eyes wide, taking it all in. She was more than just a fan. I was crazy about her. She didn't have anything at that time. Magic, fun, and freedom. She knew then that she didn't want to be in the crowd, she wanted to be the one being watched. While she was still at the school, Vivian made a friend who got her. One of the women who would play Jane in the Tarzan movies, Maureen O'Sullivan, was also not at home. Maureen was born in Ireland and Vivian was born in India. They were both by themselves. As they talked and shared stories and dreams of adventure, they grew close. Maureen was told by Vivian that she wanted to be a great performer. She said it out loud for the first time. She had hope and the courage to think she was more than just a little girl missing her family because of that friend. When she was in school shows, Vivian never picked the usual roles. She didn't want to be a quiet girl or a good lady. She was in movies as pirates, princes, and other brave action-packed characters. As a child she looked for parts that let her break the rules and see how far she could go. When she did something out of the ordinary, she liked the challenge and the attention it brought. Her whole career would be shaped by her love of drama and passion. She made an odd choice when she was 19. Herbert Lee Holman, a quiet lawyer 13 years older than her, was her husband. The real reason, he looked a lot like her favorite star at the time. Leslie Howard. In the end she told him that she didn't love him. She only wanted to be with the man he made her think of. In December 1932, they got married. She even wore the wedding dress her mother had worn. She would later work with the real Leslie Howard in Gone with the Wind. It seemed strange to her. She married a guy for his looks, but she ended up working with the first man. On October 12, 1933, less than a year after the wedding, Vivian gave birth to a girl she named Suzanne. It was very hard work for 18 hours. The baby was only 4 pounds and 2 ounces when it came a month early. Vicky lost a lot of blood and had to get a transfusion, but what she wrote in her diary shocked everyone. It felt a lot like getting a tooth pulled when I had a girl. That wasn't just tiredness coming through. She later said that when she saw her daughter for the first time, she didn't feel anything. Anger, not love or happiness. She told her friends that Suzanne had shown up at the worst possible time. She had big plans but couldn't make them come true. She felt guilty for a long time. Vivian knew what she wanted to do by 1934. She wasn't going to be like other moms. She told her husband, "I can't and won't be a wife and mother only." She really meant it. She hired 7 nannies for Suzanne's first 2 years, but she was often gone to classes or auditions. Her mother-in-law kept track of the days and found that between 1934 and 1935, Vivian had only spent 89 days with her child. She even made a deal with Herbert that he would take care of Suzanne while she worked as an actress. At that time, that kind of deal was unheard of. She was called selfish. It didn't bother her. She told a reporter, "Some people will call me a monster, But I won't say sorry for putting my dreams ahead of my responsibilities at home. Things Are Looking Up, which came out in 1935, was her first movie part. It was a one-line part. For 3 days she got $50. The line was simple, "I will be very disappointed if you are not made head girl." But something odd took place. Cineast Mutz Greenbaum was so interested in her face that he kept shooting her even when she wasn't talking. He wasted film, so the director yelled at him, but no one could take their eyes off of her while they were cutting. The director David Lean, who later became famous himself, gave her more screen time. He added almost 3 minutes to her short film. People were interested in her right away. In the same year, her agent told her to change her name. He was looking for something sexy, so April Morn was recommended. It refers to an inappropriate picture of a naked woman. Vivian was very angry. She screamed, "I will not be named after a naked woman in a painting," and threw a crystal paperweight at his wall. She chose Vivian Lee instead, which is a mix of her first name and her husband's last name. The law changed it for her in January 1936. It was more than just a name. She did it to start over and become the woman she had always wanted to be. Vivian became her new name, even from her own mother. She was only 21 years old when she saw Laurence Olivier in Romeo and Juliet for the first time. Romeo was his role. She fell deeply in love with him. She told a friend, "That's the man I'm going to marry," right after the show. But Olivier was more than just a crush for her. He was all that she hoped for. Brave, smart, and admired. He came to see her act in The Mask of Virtue a few days later. He later said that the moment he saw her, he felt like he was bound. She went to his changing room after the show, and gave him a soft shoulder kiss, and walked away. That moment put them in touch in a deep way. It was more than just physical. There was desire, respect, and passion all in one. In 1935, the same year, Vivian got her first real part on stage. It was at the Q Theatre in a show called The Green Sash. She played a part called Justa. Matthew Forsythe, the director, wanted to cast a pretty woman, and Vivian was a great choice. Her director John Glidden got her a part in the movie Look Up and Laugh, but this stage part was more important. She had a chance to show that she was more than just pretty. Back then, she was still Vivian Lee, and she took her husband Herbert Holman's given name. She sang The Mask of Virtue for that part, which is what caught Olivier's attention. Her career was taking shape, and she didn't want to just play supporting parts. She wanted to be known, respected, and given more meaning. In 1937, 2 years after that, Vivian and Olivier started making Fire Over England. That's when their affair started in secret. They were both married. She had a daughter named Suzanne, who was born in 1933. Tarquin was Olivier's son. He was born in 1936. We couldn't ignore the spark that was lit when they worked together on that movie. Though, helped the relationship grow. They were cast as lovers because they knew they had energy. Olivier later said he had cheated on Vivian, but not with anyone else. He said it was love, not just lust. In London's theatre world, everyone knew about their affair. Everything and everyone knew, but nothing could stop them. They did Hamlet together in Denmark that same year. Ophelia was played by Vivian. He played Hamlet. This is when the first real signs of her mental sickness started to show. They saw it and told scary stories about it. Began to flake and turned into a pretty stalk of chalk. Olivia's boyfriend Olivier remembers a time when she blew up at him out of the blue in her dressing room. Then, all of a sudden, she felt calm again. They both agreed that she had suddenly gone crazy. People didn't know as much about mental illness in 1937 as they do now. That moment, though, was the start of a long, painful fight for Vivian. He flew to Hollywood in 1938 when he was cast as Heathcliff in Vivian Went After Him. She wished to be Kathy. She told William Wyler, the director, that she wouldn't play any other part, not even Isabella. She tried to get the part, but he turned her down. Gail Fitzgerald got it instead. It was a huge chance lost, but Vivian had her sights set on something even bigger that was gone in an instant. From 1936 to 1938, David Oakes Selznick tried out more than 400 women for the part of Scarlett O'Hara. He put 31 to the test. The list of no answers was very harsh. A lot of famous women like Joan Crawford, Bette Davis, Katharine Hepburn, Lucille Ball, Barbara Stanwyck, and even Tallulah Bankhead. There wasn't a real Southern belle in the group. Selznick once heard Hepburn say, "I am Scarlett." He answered coldly, I can't picture Rhett after you for 12 years. It was the most well-known casting call in American movie history, and the whole country became obsessed with it. Vivian began to push hard for the part in February 1938, while her movie Fire Over England was still playing in theaters in the United States. A picture of her dressed as Scarlett went straight to Selznick's office. She told a reporter in July 1937, more than a year before Selznick even saw her, "I've cast myself as Scarlett O'Hara." Then something unexpected happened. Vivian and Olivier were brought to the set by Myron Selznick on December 10, 1938, while the Atlanta fire scene was being filmed. As the fire burned behind her, Myron introduced her to his brother by saying, "I want you to meet Scarlett O'Hara." David Selznick saw her and said, "She looks great." A Technicolor screen test was done on Vivian, and Paulette Goddard was the only one who got one. It was a big sign that Selznick was interested in her. The director George Cukor saw the test and said she was just what he was looking for. After the fact, film reviewer Frank Nugent said that no one else could have played the part better than her. She got the part on Christmas Day. The official word came out on January 13, 1939. But the choice wasn't easy in the end. In the race, Paulette Goddard was in first place. She was popular, American, and had beautiful screen tests, but the company turned her down because it wasn't clear if she was married to Charlie Chaplin. No one was sure if they were married or not. The chance of a crisis was too high. John Arthur was also in the running, but he wasn't right for the part. Selznick picked the unknown British girl over the stars in the end. It was risky, but it paid off. Vivien Leigh became a star overnight when Gone with the Wind came out on December 15, 1939. 66. The Academy Award for Best Woman went to her, making her the first British woman to win the award. The movie won 8 of the 13 Oscars it was nominated for, and when inflation is taken into account, became the highest-grossing movie of all time. Before, there had never been a color movie that won Best Picture. A reviewer named Frank Nugent said that her performance was so strong that it ended the ongoing casting search. Years later, historian Andrew Sarris said that Vivian didn't just play Scarlett, she was Scarlett. It was always that way in people's thoughts about her. It felt more like a top-secret mission than a party at Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier's wedding. By February 1940, they were both officially divorced, and they started planning a secret, quiet wedding right away. Where is it? In Santa Barbara there is San Isidro Ranch. The owner was one of their best friends, the actor Ronald Cronin. Coleman and Lazita his wife. They knew the press would keep asking questions, so they kept everything very secret. Benita bought Vivian's wedding ring under her own name so that no one would find out. They got married just after midnight on August 30, 1940, which is actually August 31, 1940. Katharine Hepburn and Garson Kanin were the only witnesses. After the wedding, they went on their honeymoon on Coleman's boat Dragoon, which was based near Catalina Island. Later, the wedding secret made the news, but it also showed how much stress they'd be under. As World War II got worse, Olivier's sense of duty made him become madly interested in flying. He flew for almost 250 hours while he was still in the United States. His flight wasn't just for fun. He was working hard at training because he wanted to join the Royal Air Force when he got back to Britain. His love for flying kept him going even while shooting the war thriller Hamilton Woman. When he got back to the UK though, red tape got in the way. He joined the Fleet Air Arm instead of the RAF. RNA's Worthy Down was where he worked. He quickly became famous for the number of times he crashed planes. People made fun of the fact that he had more crashes than Ralph Richardson. Still, Olivier kept giving speeches that made the men feel better. Because he was good at playing, he was more useful behind the mic than in the pilot. At the same time, the most powerful man in Britain liked the same movie. Hamilton Woman. Winston Churchill couldn't stop watching it. Some say 17 times. Some say as many as 83. Churchill thought the movie was more than just fun. It was the best kind of advertising for a war. Hitler looked a lot like Napoleon in the story. Alexander Korda was in charge of the production, which went quickly and well. It looked great on screen. Churchill thought Leigh was so good that he gave her one of his drawings after the war. It stayed in her bedroom until she died. Best sound was given to the movie, and it was also nominated for awards in photography, art direction, and special effects. Churchill even wrote Korda a letter to congratulate him. This showed that Leigh and Olivier's friendship on TV wasn't just for show. It turned into a tool of war, but their marriage was already beginning to fall apart behind the scenes. Vivian started drinking a lot while they were on their vacation. Olivier didn't feel loved, he felt suffocated. Noel Coward went to see them at Worthy Down and saw how sad Olivier looked. While working on that Hamilton woman, Alexander Corder also saw the stress. Vivian's drinking was getting worse, and Olivier seemed withdrawn. It wasn't just that their relationship was tense, it was based on strong emotions that neither of them could handle. And this happened years before doctors fully knew how sick Vivian was. She still worked hard. During the war, she went on tour with the Old Vic Spring Party through North Africa in 1943. It wasn't a picture op with famous people. She did shows in Algeria, Tunisia, Tripoli, and Gibraltar for 3 months. For months the men had only seen war, but she made them laugh and gave them hope. Her show, a spoof called Scarlett O'Hara, The Terror of Tara, was a huge hit, and she even did it for King George VI. The king liked it so much that he told her to make another one based on the White Cliffs of Dover. Vivian told Olivier in a letter that it was all worth it because the men earned it. Not only was it brave, it was a turning point. She wasn't just a pretty actor anymore. She did something to help win the war. Then bad things happened. Vivian slipped and fell on a shiny floor while shooting Caesar and Cleopatra in 1944. She was having a baby. The fall led to the loss of the baby. She was broken by it. For her and Olivier, this child was everything. Even worse, Gabriel Pascal, the director, had already made things hard for her because she was pregnant. For the dangerous scene, he hadn't even hired a stunt double. There was more than one loss in that case. A lot of scholars agree. It led to her first big bipolar attack. Insanity would follow her around her whole life. 1945. During a run of The Skin of Our Teeth on stage, everyone could see Vivian's tears. She had fits of hysteria, trouble sleeping, and crazy mood swings. Still, every night when the curtain went up, she did a great job. It looked like her muscles were telling her what to do. People in the group were shocked. She could still be smart even when she was almost crazy. But the red lights were flashing. Not only was this an actor with problems, it was a woman falling apart in public. In the same year, doctors found tuberculosis in her left lung. It was caught while she was touring North Africa. The treatment was very harsh. It took more than a year to get better after 6 weeks in the hospital. The worst part was how the TB medicine made her manic symptoms worse. She drank while she was on isoniazid, a drug that is known to make people lose their minds. As a result, they got sick, had crazy spells, and became paranoid. Her life and the world around her had changed by the time she got better. The two of them went on a 6-month play tour of Australia and New Zealand in 1948. It was meant to be a culture success, but it was a disaster for people's feelings. Lee had trouble sleeping. She was often too sick to carry on. Before a show in Christchurch, she lost her shoes. She didn't want to go on stage. Olivier went crazy. He hit her in public, he got hit back by her. Then she did it anyway, but she wore borrowed shoes. They were worn out, mad, and broken. Olivier said later that he had lost Vivian in Australia. The same tour had another bad thing happen. Peter Finch is a crazy and skilled actor that Vivian met. They hit it off right away. Things went wrong quickly, and Olivier didn't know he was a part of it. He hired Finch himself and took him to London. She even took Finch to Ceylon with her in 1953, to film Elephant Walk. All night she begged him to come with her. Olivia blew Olivier a kiss as he waved goodbye at the airport. In retrospect, Olivier said that was when he knew the affair was real. Still, they worked hard for years to save their marriage, but Lee's mental health got worse. Olivier often saw her broke down in tears while sitting on the bed. She would go from crazy highs to crushing lows. She forgot what happened, had hallucinations, and couldn't recall words. In Elephant Walk, she wrote Olivier letters that looked like they were from another person. I begged him to come. Began calling him Larry because he thought Peter Finch was Olivier. She finally couldn't even stay on set. Elizabeth Taylor took her place. Things that happened during crazy moments were the most upsetting. At night, she walked around her yard without any clothes on. David Niven once saw her that way, and hoped no one saw. Some of her relationships were spontaneous. On set, she did some sexy moves. She mixed up parts and yelled the wrong lines. One time she scared her maid so much that she ran down the stairs screaming, naked with makeup all over her face. Because of what she did, she lost her job. They didn't want to take the chance. During Elephant Walk, she wouldn't leave her room. On the wrong set, she began to quote a streetcar named Desire. She was put to sleep and flown back to the UK. She tried to open the window of the plane while it was in the air. She was taken to the hospital, but that didn't help. In the end, she lived in a house in Hollywood with a crazy ex-boyfriend. It got worse because they fed off of each other. Williams saw something unique in Vivien Leigh. He told director Irene Mayer-Selznick that she had to be Blanche Dubois after seeing her in St. Antigone in School for Scandal. This wasn't just an idea, it was a demand. He thought that Leigh had the right amount of beauty, frailty, and inner chaos to play Blanche. Leigh was already a Hollywood star after Gone with the Wind, but Williams cared more about how she looked on stage. He later said, "She gave Blanche everything I wanted and a lot more that I had never even thought of." It was famous that Leigh played Desire, a streetcar on the London stage, but it cost him a lot. During a 9-month run, she played Blanche 326 times in a row. Every night she went into the mind of a woman who was broken. There was less and less difference between her and Blanche. Leigh had bipolar disease, and the part made her feel bad in ways she couldn't get out of. She later said, "Now she's in charge of me." The part wasn't just something she did, it stayed with her after the show was over. The movie's director Elia Kazan didn't want her at first. He believed Olivia de Havilland or Jessica Tandy would be better. He even said Leigh wasn't very good at what she did and didn't think a British actress could play a Southern woman who was very emotional. But Kazan changed his mind as the movie went on. He saw how far Leigh would go to get a scene. He said she would have crawled over broken glass. He liked her more than almost every other actor he had worked with. He changed roles, which led to one of the most famous acts in movie history. Leigh had a personal relationship with Blanche in addition to his work relationship with her. She said over and over that Blanche had taken over. It wasn't just acting like a model. The breakdowns she had in the part were true to life. In the end, she said that Blanche drove me crazy. Friends also saw it. She became a different person. Blanche was still a part of her after the show was over. Leigh won her second Oscar in 1952, but the part of Blanche in the movie. She didn't show up to the event. The award was received on her behalf by Greer Garson. It's interesting that both of her Oscar wins, for Gone with the Wind in 1940 and for Streetcar in 1952, took place in leap years. The BAFTA, the New York Film Critics Award, and the Volpel Cup at Venice were some of the other awards she won. Tennessee Williams was very happy. He thought Leigh's Blanche was great. In 2023, many years later, her act was added to the Online Film and Television Association's Hall of Fame. After only a year, everything broke down. Leigh lost his mind completely in January 1953 while shooting Elephant Walk in Sri Lanka. The heat, being in the jungle, and her worsening sleepiness set off a scary illusion. Became scared and suspicious of the local crew. Director William de Durrell tried to help by changing the plan of the shoot, but Leigh became even less reliable. She drank a lot, forgot her lines, and wrote Olivier panicked notes pleading him to come help her. Things got worse after that. Going back to Hollywood on the plane was the worst 72 hours of my life. Leigh yelled that the plane was burning. She hit the windows, tried to take off her clothes, and almost jumped out. Crew members had to put her to sleep in the air. I said it was a spectacular crash. Her mental health was getting worse and worse. Things kept getting crazy back in Los Angeles. She went to Paramount's lock on March 27, 1953, but got locked in her dressing room instead. She screamed lines from the train and hit the wall hard. While saying "fire fighting," she fell to the floor and couldn't tell the difference between herself and Blanche. The bosses had to call Olivier's lawyer. He quickly flew her back to Britain from Los Angeles. In Surrey, she was taken to a mental ward. In that moment of clarity, she told Olivier that she loved Peter Finch and had been seeing him since 1948. The timing was terrible. Olivier had just come all the way from France to save her. Now he was hearing about a long-told lie. In the end, friends like David Niven and Noel Coward said that Leigh was really angry at this point. She didn't finish Elephant Walk. They had already spent $3 million, but Leigh couldn't go on. Then Elizabeth Taylor, who was only 21, took her place. It's strange that Leigh was still in a lot of the long shots. There are still far-off shots of her in the final cut, but all of the close-ups were shot again with Taylor. It gave me a creepy feeling of what the movie could have been. Even worse, Leigh had chosen Finch for the part, and offered it to him during a crazy late-night visit. 1958, she was having trouble with her marriage to Olivier. In that year, she started dating actor Jack Marival. He knew she was depressed, and had cancer. He even told Olivier he would look after her. In the early 1960s, Lee and Marival went on tours together in Australia, New Zealand, and Latin America. She felt stable for a short time, but she still told herself in secret that she would have rather had a short life with Larry than a long one without him. Olivier began seeing Joan Plowright, who was 22 years younger than him, in 1960. Fought back by telling the press about the story. In a strange twist, she had admitted to having an affair with Finch years before, but this time the marriage couldn't be saved. Suicidal thoughts. Oliver thought she was like someone who was always on the edge of a cliff. It was official in December 1960 that they were divorced. He got married to Plowright right away, but he always cared about Lee. There were 5 weeks left until she died, and this was his last letter to her. He said, in 1963, she won a Tony Award for Tfarik, a Broadway musical where she had to sing, dance and play comedy. The show was put on 264 times. She danced on The Ed Sullivan Show. In the end, Joan Copeland and then Eva Gabor took over the part, but Lee had shown that she could still be great. Then tuberculosis came back. They told her in May 1967 that it had spread to both lungs. She had been on mental drugs and electroshock therapy for years, which made her immune system weaker. She and Michael Redgrave were practicing a tricky balance when she had to take a break. It looked like she was getting better for a while, but that hope didn't last. They left their Eaton Square apartment on the night of July 7, 1967, to go to a show. He came back before midnight and saw her sleeping. He found her on the floor of her bedroom, around 1:30 a.m. She had tried to walk to the bathroom, but her lungs were full of fluid. She passed out and died. She was only 53 years old. The scene was awful. There was blood all over her body from a lung bleed. Marival cleaned up before calling the doctor because he knew Lee would want to be treated with respect. This is when he called Olivier. Olivier came right away, even though he was in the hospital for prostate cancer. He prayed over her body and helped with the funeral. Britain's theaters were dark for an hour on July 8 to remember her.